but his low damage is hard to ignore. If you aren't giving him a steady supply of crit stars, it can be difficult to Noble Phantasm often enough, and of course, his survivability is very low, with horrible HP and nothing to protect himself with. Overall, Dantes gets a C+ from me. Well, it's been over 2 years since I first reviewed Dantes, and boy have things changed. Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here, with a Servant Spotlight update for the quick man himself, Dantes. With the evolution of the quick meta, his recent NP upgrade, and his current rate up, I think Dantes is beyond due for a reevaluation. And if there are any other servants that you'd like to see me reevaluate, let me know in the comments down below. Now with that said, let's take a look at what's changed for Dantes since his original release. Firstly, he has received an NP upgrade that massively improves his NP damage. It also inflicts curse damage for a few turns, but that's not as important. If you guys remember my original spotlight, one of my biggest issues with Dantes was his damage output. As a quick AoE servant with virtually no class advantage in early 2018, his selection of supports were highly limited and his damage was a joke. But we're in 2020 now, and the quick meta has been massively retooled thanks in large part to Skadi. Thanks to Skadi's toolset, Dantes has arguably become the best farming servant in the game. Or at least he was up until a week ago if you're playing JP. Either way, Dantes has always been built to be an NP spammer, and now due to the incredibly high amount of hits on his Noble Phantasm and his strong NP gain buff, Skadi can enable him to have unmatched consistency when it comes to farming waves of enemies. Due to his Avenger class typing, he also doesn't have to worry about mixed waves of enemies or having class disadvantage so long as his NP is strong enough to overkill an enemy. So he's able to loop off of nearly anyone. On the downside though, this does mean that in order to maximize his consistency, he does need to be at a relatively high NP level, like NP3. But assuming you have an NP3 Dantes and a Skadi, then GG, he's the best farmer in the game, he gets an S rating, case closed. However, I don't just evaluate servants on their most optimal whale comps. I am well aware that the vast majority of players do not have an NP2 or NP3 Dantes, a Kaleidoscope, and a Skadi to abuse. So how does your average NP1 Dantes fare outside of the Skadi system? Well, fortunately, this is not a Valkyrie style situation where Dantes needs the Skadi system to be really effective. Even on his own merits, Dantes is a surprisingly strong servant with a very low skill floor and a high ceiling. This is due in large part to what I mentioned earlier, his NP buff. The impact of increasing Dantes' Noble Phantasm damage is massive, because as an Avenger class servant, it helps make up for one of the biggest inherent weaknesses of his class, that being lack of class advantage. By super buffing his Noble Phantasm through the interlude, damage no longer becomes as much of an issue. And because of his high star generating and his good NP gain, he can spam his Noble Phantasm easily, which gives him very high DPS. But that's not all. Not only has Dantes' Noble Phantasm gotten better, but the quick meta overall has improved massively. There are many more supports available for Dantes to take advantage of compared to when he first released. Even without double Skadi, having a single Skadi support from your friends list can turn Dantes into an NP spamming DPS monster, and her Noble Phantasm also affords him some good protection. In addition, there's free-to-play servants like Rider Ishtar and Paracelsus who can help him out with his NP gain. Premium supports like Chiron and Osakabe Hime can really improve his DPS or set him up for crits. And if you want to go full DPS damage mode, then Assassin of Nightless City and Maid Altar provide both decent support and incredible burst damage to quick teams. Simply put, the quick meta is so balanced and versatile that it's easy for free-to-play players to provide excellent support for Dantes compared to how restrictive it was 2 years ago. So even newer players can get a lot of use out of him. He also retains a lot of good utility from his initial release that has only become more important as time goes on. Stuff like Invincibility Pierce, a mini Star Bomb, debuff removal, NP drain, and a defense down effect on a spammable Noble Phantasm. With all of these tools at his disposal, Dantes is not only a top tier farmer, but he's also damn good for boss fights and challenge quests too. Your CE choices for Dantes should all be craft essences that help him out with quick card effectiveness and NP gain so you can maximize his DPS, like Imaginary Around, Someday in Summer, or Imperial Capital Holy Grail War. If you're specifically going for loop strategies with Skadi, then Kaleidoscope, Magical Girl of Sapphire, and Holy Night Supper are your best bets. And in the future, make sure you pick up Traces of Christmas. It'll drop on Christmas of 2021, and it boosts NP gain and quick card effectiveness, making it very strong for NP spamming. For command codes, I recommend either getting Mages of Flowers if you want to help improve his NP gain just a little bit, or the one that carries Fortune, which improves Star Absorb on quick cards and has the effect of increasing both his damage and his potential NP gain. Overall, Dantes has benefited tremendously from his NP upgrade and the general evolution of the quick meta. If you're willing to invest and go full whale mode, then an NP3 Dantes with Skadi makes for the best and most consistent farming team in the game across all content and enemy types. But even outside of the Skadi system, Dantes remains a strong DPS quick servant with strong farming capabilities, a very versatile skill set that scales well into the late game, a strong and spammable Noble Phantasm, and there are now a wide array of team comps and supports that work very well with him. Of course, he isn't completely perfect though. His crit consistency is still quite low despite his high star generating, mostly due to his low star weight, and he still lacks any kind of defense, which makes him tougher to keep alive in long fights. However, Dantes is designed to make quick work of his enemies, so as long as you play to his strengths, there is very little that he can't do. So he gets an A+ from me. Like I said, if you have a Skadi and your Dantes is NP 2 or 3, then you can go ahead and bump that score up to an S. But if you don't, fear not, because he is still a top tier servant among the best in the game, and absolutely worth rolling for. Speaking of which, even if you don't get him while he's on rate up right now, remember he is going to have another rate up next year around this time, as will Skadi. So start saving now, and good luck. And those are my thoughts on the new and improved Dantes, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know who you'd like to see me cover next in this series of Spotlight reevaluations, which I imagine is going to include a lot of art servants. Thank you, Castoria. And if you haven't already, do follow us over on Twitter, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Discord, all linked in the description down below. Until next time, this is Soberoni, signing out. Later.